Hello, I'm going to be talking about the use of the NTI reader and the HB reader for the translation of Chinese Buddhist texts. This is what I'm going to talk about: the challenges and strategies for translating Chinese Buddhist texts, lexicography 101, introduction, introducing the NTI reader and the HB reader, and tips and tricks, and then a demo. Challenges and strategies for translating Chinese Buddhist texts. What are the challenges? Firstly, the volume. The volume of text in the Chinese canon. There is over 100 million characters, and there is many canons and many other bodies of text besides the Chinese Buddhist canons. There's also a huge volume of terminology. Two of the large Buddhist dictionaries, Chinese Buddhist dictionaries, contain over 30,000 entries. The Foreground Dictionary of Buddhism contains around 35,000 entries, and the Dingfu Bao Dictionary also contains about 30,000 entries. And these two sets of 30,000 entries plus are not the same, so there's more than 30,000 in total. There are large cultural and linguistic gaps between the source language, canonical Chinese, and the target languages, which is mostly English. We're only talking about English. The canonical texts were composed in remote time and culture that's unfamiliar to today's readers, so part of the translator's job is to bridge that gap. Also, the source text contains a combination of languages translated into Chinese or transliterated into Chinese in many cases, including Sanskrit, literary Chinese, which is the base of the canonical text, modern Chinese, which are dictionary entries mostly written in, and there's influences from other places as well. Multiple target languages, we're mostly talking about English, multiple target audiences, so we have academics, we have monastics, we have Buddhist lay people, and these can come from different cultures and language backgrounds. In particular, the groups that are translating from Chinese include, the main groups translating from Chinese include Vietnamese, Korean, and Japanese, in addition to English. So multiple target languages. So there's other problems besides that. There is the age of some of the existing translations, which are over 100 years in some cases for certain texts, and copyright barriers. So existing translations into English are copyrighted, released as books which are copyrighted in most cases. So what are some of the strategies for overcoming these challenges? One, let's make translators better. So translators become expert translators, and they can translate large volumes of text highly accurately. So in order to do that, they need to do studies in Buddhist, training in Buddhist studies, language training in both Chinese and English, and also literary Chinese as well as modern Chinese, and some idea of translation techniques as well. More people, so we can throw more people at the problem to translate more great volume of text. However, when people work together in translation groups, they need tools and procedures to work together, especially for online collaboration. And these tools are appearing. It's a matter of figuring out how to use them and use them effectively in a procedure. I've got things in mind like shared documents that can be have multiple editors, like Google Docs, and online collaboration tools, and now maybe some online translation tools are emerging that can allow multiple groups to work together. So improved tools and linguistic assets. Here we're talking about machine translation, online dictionaries, and then better linguistic assets, so like better dictionaries and other assets. I'll talk about the assets now. Okay, so let's do lexicography 101, lexicography meaning dictionary building. So what are the types of translation tools that people would use? Dictionaries for one, for sure, that is one of the primary tools. Terminology databases, so here we're talking about things like that are specific to a particular organization. So if we're translating for Foguangshan has a lot of its own terminology. If you're translating for say the European Union, they would have an even larger database of European Union specific terminology. Translation memory, so then we're looking at phrases, translating phrases together. which phrases that can be repeated, and corpora and corpus analysis tools. So we have a corpora. A corpus is a collection of texts that's kind of a consistent body of text. So the Buddhist canon could be is considered as a corpus, so we can analyze that and find things like words that occur together frequently, the most commonly occurring words, the order that words occur in, etc. And then we have machine translation and other natural language text analysis, which may not be ready now, but it's an emerging area that I think that shouldn't be ignored. Types of dictionary. Monolingual dictionary. So this is the kind of dictionary that people learn with initially in their parent language, in their mother tongue, such as the Goyu Zidian from the Taiwan Republic of China Ministry of Education. It's a monolingual dictionary, although it actually includes literary Chinese and modern Chinese, so not strictly monolingual, not monolingual, but the defining characteristic of these kind of dictionaries is they contain definitions. So when I look up a word, it has the definition of what the word means in that language, which is different from other kinds of dictionaries, which we'll see here. So bilingual dictionaries. So the NTI Reader Dictionary is an example of a bilingual dictionary. Another example is the Far East Chinese English Dictionary, Yendong Hanyu Dazilian. So the defining characteristic of these kind of dictionaries, and the most important characteristic, is the equivalence. So if we're translating from Chinese to English, we'll have English equivalents for the Chinese words, and we skip mostly these dictionaries don't contain definitions. So when we have the English part, that's not a definition, that's just an equivalent, and we don't necessarily need a definition because we know what the English equivalent means in English. Specialist dictionaries. Buddhist dictionaries are a kind of specialist dictionary, and their kind of defining characteristic is these encyclopedic entries of things, explaining what the various concepts in Buddhism mean and giving some historic background, etc., and often including a lot of people and places as well. So some other kind of dictionaries, or another kind of dictionary that's important with canonical Chinese is historic language dictionaries, in particular dictionaries for literary Chinese, such as the Gudai Hanyu Dazilian, which is a dictionary from mainland China, which explains literary Chinese or classical Chinese in English. One of the challenges here is the large number of periods covered by literary Chinese. Other kind of dictionaries, there's many more kinds. Etymological dictionary is a little bit different from a historical dictionary, that it gives it explains how words develop over time. For example, an etymological dictionary of classical Chinese would give the Old Chinese and the Middle Chinese pronunciations. We have word databases. These are becoming popular now with a lot of online tools and thesauruses and so on. So what's in a dictionary entry? Let's look at NTI dictionary entry in the NTI Reader. For example, let's look at the word general, which is a Buddhist term. In this case, the simplified and traditional is the same. If the traditional is different, it would be this. The simplified would be given first, and traditional would be given in brackets. Then there is a list of word senses. For each word sense, there is pronunciation given in Hanyu Pinyin. In this case, general. The part of speech. In this case, it's a noun. Part of speech is a little bit debatable in Chinese, and in fact in English they're debatable too, and you've got to treat them with kind of a grain of salt and not as hard and fixed. But they are useful, especially to think about when something is a word and when it's a phrase. English equivalents. So here again not a definition, so tathata. It's the Sanskrit word suchness, inherent nature, true nature. You could debate the definition of this particular word for at least an hour. So there's some labels to tell you what kind of domain the word is used in, and what kind of concept is, what kind of a thing it is. So in this case, the label is saying that the domain is Buddhism. Some other notes, such as what the Sanskrit equivalent is. In this case, tathata is the Sanskrit equivalent. May have a basic explanation, maybe some references. See like if it's in a variant writing, you would see like a C the main entry for the kind of the standard writing of the term, then abbreviations for reference sources. Then down below, you see some auto-generated areas that relate the word use to the word to its use in the canon. And for example, showing how the word is used, showing which words tend to occur with it in general, and then what other words are contained. What other words contain this word? Okay, NTI reader and the HB reader. The NTI reader contains the Taisho Tripitaka. The HB reader contains the writings of Venerable Master Xing Yun, HB meaning Humanistic Buddhism. They both use similar software and the same dictionary, but they're used for different text collections. And the HB reader software is a little bit newer than the NTI reader. Let's look at the NTI reader. It contains the Taisho Shinshu Daizoko, which is the Daizhang Xinxiu Dazangjing, which is a version of the Chinese Buddhist canon produced in Japan. The Taisho contains 100 volumes. Only 55 are included here because only 55 have been released into the public domain, and the other ones contain Japanese commentaries, siddham, script, and images. Those ones are not included here. The total size of these 55 volumes is about 140 million characters, so very large. There's a large number of texts, over 3,000 texts. Each text has an English colophon explaining to you in English what the text is and a little bit about the background of the text. And then for each text, all the words included in the text are matched to English definitions. You just mouse over the word and you can see the definition that we think is most likely for the word. Then word boundary detection, it figures out the boundaries between the words, and then some other corpus linguistic statistics are computed on the word. HB Reader is similar. It's not finished yet. It's probably got about a third of Venerable Master Xing Yun's writings. So far that's about 10 million characters, so he was a very prolific writer, and that's quite a large amount, and it contains some useful stuff, but not finished yet. The search here is a little bit different. It searches for titles and doesn't break the sentences down into individual words like the NTI reader yet. Here's an example of word search. You can search in English, Pinyin, or Chinese, simplified or traditional, and it will give you the things that it think matches that definition. So for here, for example, look for Awakening of Faith, and it will give you a few options that are, say, abbreviations or the full title of the Awakening of Faith. Here is the example text of the Awakening of Faith in the Mahayana and in the NTI reader, so it's kind of what it looks like. There's the text. Every character on here is a link. The proper nouns and place names are underlined. There's an example. If you click on General on the text, you'll go to the definition, and here is the meaning there, and there is how it relates it to places that occur in the Taisho canon. Text segmentation, so what I mean is here is an example giving in the definition of the Awakening of Faith in the Foregone Shan Dictionary of Buddhism, and cutting a sentence out of there and just pasting it into the NTI reader, and it shows you can break it down and find out, groups the characters together that belong in a word. Okay, so finding references. So most of the entries in the NTI reader have references which are given with this system of abbreviations, which I'll show in a minute. The titles of the text are also given there using, where possible, the translations from Professor Lancaster's Korean descriptive catalogue of the Korean Buddhist canon. Then the dictionary, the most important source is the CCC Dict. From that's kind of forms a base. Also the characters from the Unihan database, the Foregone Shan Dictionary of Buddhism, Dingful Bao Dictionary of Buddhism, Sutta Hodis, and other Buddhist dictionaries. Some terms provided directly from Foregone Shan, including the Foregonepedia for Foregone Shan terminology, Wikipedia, especially for things like place names and etc., modern terms, and then the Mo Dict, or the Ministry of Education Standard Chinese Dictionary, and other Chinese to English resources. Is what are the challenges for translating for diverse audiences? Stylistics is very important, and for example, Foguangshan has a particular style. It's usually translating for an audience that may include both academic and lay people, so not strictly for an academic audience. So we need to make it in a way that can be understood by people without a higher graduate degree in Buddhism, say. And we need to account for differences in cultural values between different groups of people. For example, the Wei Jiao system, which has been used in Taiwan, and it's getting a bit old now, and it's kind of a relic from the British Empire. It's not as maybe the right style to use in many cases, especially when you're talking about place and people names in mainland China, unless they've been used before. But for example, Chinese people in general will not be able to understand those Wei Jiao's transliterations. Notes and annotations. So notes and annotations are given there to give hints on style, especially for Guangshan translation standards. So collocations, these are words that are used together, and people may be used to seeing words placed together in a certain way that it depends on the context as to how it's translated. So for example, li, which usually means to depart or to leave, and we talk about li fan now, and then we're talking about a mental process. So that doesn't make sense in English in a mental process, so we probably would use the word transcend instead of leave. Tips and tricks. Tips and tricks. So expert translators may not benefit from the NTI reader or HBI reader in general because they don't need to look up things in the dictionary. However, there's still variant writings that even expert translators may not know that are included in the dictionary. It's not the dictionary, the readers are not perfect, and you need to use your own judgment when interpreting the results. Check the label of a word sense to make sure it makes sense with the intended domain. So if we look in a Buddhist text, and you see that the definition there is there, but the domain label is for, say, physics, that's not the right definition. You need to look, you don't see another definition that's for Buddhism or literary Chinese. You need to find some other reference that tells you what those words mean. So classical Chinese here, I use it because it's commonly used in term guwen in Chinese dictionaries, and it really means anything that's older than modern Chinese, which covers a huge period. When translating from canonical text, think about breaking up multi-character words. So you may see words that are grouped together, but you can't always guarantee that the words, those terms should be grouped together. You need to maybe think about separating them out into individual words. So like a 2-character word, think about breaking those 2 characters up into to 2 separate words. Let's have a look at a demo here. Here is the NTI Buddhist reader, and we can search on our example word. We just search on, we can use an English search. There we go, Awakening Faith. So let's look at that. That's kind of an abbreviation of the Awakening of Faith, and we see the standard term right here. So let's click on that, and we can just click here, and then we can see that's contained in 大乘起信论. Let's look at that. And so there we go. That is the title of the text we're interested in, and then we can see where those things occur. So this is the definition. It's the title of a text. It has a couple of different options. We use this slash character here to separate the different possible equivalents, and then there's 2 options here. You see like academic translations, like say Boswell and Lopez. Princeton Dictionary of Buddhism tends to use just Hanyu Pinyin for their titles, and whereas probably Foguangshan would probably write the English definition, so there's a treatise on the Awakening Faith in the Mahayana, although Foguangshan will probably omit the Sanskrit diacritics here. And then we give a few notes on it, and then we could look for something a little bit different kind of word here, such as actually we can go to now we've got the traditional there. We can go and look that up in the Foregoing Dictionary of Buddhism, find that, and there we go. That is there. Then we'll find out that this is all in Chinese. So let's look at that and see if that's a bit hard to write. If we find that a little bit hard to read, then we can paste it back into the NTI reader and look up those words kind of in a single go. And then we show all of those words. HBI reader, similar, very similar, looks similar, but is really around the master, Venerable Master Xing collected readings. So we can click on any of the titles here, and then we can drill down and see the Chinese text. Has a little bit of an improvement in usability here, that when we click on the word, it kind of just pops up a screen, a dialogue screen, and we don't need to go to a different screen, which is a little improvement over the NTI reader. We can still go to the detail page to see the detail, and we can also go and we can search from here. So if we search on something now, just to demonstrate search, go here. Now we're searching rather for words, we're searching for titles, and then we see that title, and we can navigate to the collection and to the specific document as well. Thank you.